Good morning. We're here with Tim LaFrance this morning at OneAbove's range facilities, looking over some of the products that he's made over the years. Specifically today, we're focused on his M16-45, which is a 45 ACP variant on an M16 or AR platform. And we're going to ask Tim here to briefly explain the various iterations in the history and how he got to where he is today with this model. Tim?
Okay, thanks, Rod. This is the original concept gun that was built, and I made about 50 of these. They were sold to various police law enforcement agencies. Basically, it's an 8-inch barrel in 45 ACP. It uses slightly modified Thompson magazines, which, by the way, still fit in a Thompson, with 3 minor cuts on it, including the follower. It fits right in. As you can see, the receiver is unique to that magazine, because these upper and lower receivers are wider than the normal AR. So I have my own forging dies, and we make these specifically for this gun. And it is a straight blowback gun, heavy bolt, heavy buffer assembly. And the reason we made it this way and with this type of handguard so that it could readily accept the silencer that I made with them, because as I said, they were going to law enforcement and police, and they require the use of silenced weapons as often as they can get them, both for training and for entry. So when I take this off, and it's off now, come on. Okay, there is a flash hider which you can close up here, which is a Vortex style. That's the principle it operates on, that goes on the end. And there's one here. Let me run over here, put it on. So when you put it together like this, the reason it needs a flash hider at this point is it only has an 8-inch barrel. And you're still getting flash out of standard either military or commercial ammo. That was the first gun. Then, because of requests, I had a lot of people wanted to buy a semi-auto version. So in order to make it compatible with California law at the time, it's a 16-inch barrel. It's all one piece, but the rifling ends at 13 inches. And then the compensator, which again is copied from a Thompson, is a Cuts compensator style. And then the end cap is put back on and welded in place. So the barrel is literally a one-piece barrel. Now, it doesn't need a flash hider. The compensator is enough because in that 13-inch level, a standard 230 ball burns out completely, and all you get is a black puff of smoke out of the end. There is no flash whatsoever, so it's not necessary. Again, everything's the same. You don't have to worry about the handguard or anything. And then one of the things we did in the initial orders was we made these rails that were made to be used, and the requirement on the rail was simple enough, and it's the reason I didn't use a Picatinny style upper. The police departments keep their guns clean, and when you use a silencer on the gun on a regular basis, it gets very, very dirty and has to be cleaned more often. Well, when you start hanging all these things on the gun, you need to take them off if you want to clean it, otherwise they wind up with solvent. So when I made these rails, they are specific to these handles, which are very closely machined, so that every time you take this off and put it back on, as long as it indexes in the hole and up against the front of this, it's in exactly the same place. So you set the zeros and you're done. This particular one has a laser and a flashlight on it. You can put a lot of other stuff, but we normally either offer the rail with the gun on the full auto one. On the semi-auto, it's an option you can get with it, and it comes with a little side rail, so you can put everything from a doctor, everybody's red dot on here, anybody's optical fit on there. Plus they're see-through. That's what the channel is for, so that you can still see the iron sights without taking them off. And it adds a lot more flexibility to the gun. The buttstocks were chosen to be the original AR style because they're rubber at the back and they're radiused. They're a little bit shorter than the normal ones, allowing for the police that use them, throw it up to their shoulder. When a vest on, it doesn't get crowded, doesn't have sharp edges. And it's a lot easier for smaller people, like women like to shoot the gun, and children. And because the recoil is so mild, they have a lot of fun with it.
Describe to us how you moved over to an evolution of a collapsible stock and the buffer tube scenario that came about as a result of that, and then how you came about with this handguard up here as well, if you
will. Well, the next iteration was I made some of these as pistols, because when this thing with SIG came out with this stabilizer so that you could use them one-handed, I made a couple like that. And in order to do that, it uses a much shorter receiver extension. Now, because it's a blowback operated gun, there's a certain specific weight that the bolt and all the reciprocating mass has to be. When you use a shorter buffer, you can't use the long buffer. I can't get enough weight. So the buffers that were made for these were made same size as a carbine buffer, but they're made out of pure tungsten, and they weigh 12 ounces. A normal aluminum Car 15 one only weighs 3.5. And that added to the bolt winds up the same weight as it is in either the machine gun or in the semi. These hand guards were made with these silicone O-rings on them so that, and they can come right off if you want to take them off, but they're there because you can get the gun wet, oily, full of sand, full of dirt, anything you want, you can still grab it. You know right where you are. The index is there. And the reason it's bell-shaped is at the front is so on the short-barreled ones, your hand can't slide off the end and accidentally take a finger off from the blast. Because the blast coming out of the side of these flash hiders is pretty ferocious. It will cut you.
So, Tim, law enforcement genesis and demand. Speak briefly, if you would, please, to the fact that it's just a lot of fun to shoot as a plinker.
Yeah, that's the thing that made me make it with the regular handle. I'm a firm believer in the iron sights have to be standard on the gun. In other words, no matter what else you have, you always have iron sights. And when we took the gun out and first shot it and let other people shoot it for the first time, the first thing they noticed was it's so comfortable to shoot. It fits easily up to your shoulder. You don't strain for it. The sights are right where you expect them. They come with a bright orange front sight, so it's easy to pick up. You don't mistake it for either wing on either side. The rear aperture is much larger than a normal M16 aperture, and they're set for about 25 yards on the low aperture, and the other aperture is at 100 yards. But because it's such a stable cartridge, it's not hard at all to offhand at 100 yards hit a pie plate. The first people that shot this thing, 6 out of 10 times they hit the pie plate, standing up, and they're looking at me like, why is this gun doing this? And I'm going, hey, it doesn't go anywhere. You hold it there, you pull the trigger, the gun doesn't move. It weighs 8.5 pounds without ammo and without a magazine. But the weight is balanced so that it's right in the middle of the receiver.
Right over the trigger.
Right over the trigger. And even with the silencer on, it's still balanced at this point, right over the magazine. So balance is really important when you shoot, because the recoil, momentum, and everything, if it starts rocking back and forth because it's ahead of your hand, it makes your hand the fulcrum. Now you're going to have a problem. You're going to have to deal with it. And depending on your how tall you are and how much you weigh, determines how much you can deal with it.
Tim, we really appreciate you coming in from Orange County to share all this with us the last couple of days and to give us an education on how you came about all these various inventions and iterations. It's been wonderful having you here with us, and we thank you for the opportunity to shoot your guns here today.
You're welcome. Thanks, Rod.
You're welcome.